Yak a yuch satini, stikat yuhan. Kan cheesh, wish kanach wutu da arti. Achu ayag, achu a ichti de yikak, ichti de yich. Ja, chana, gwachgatnig dat, yejigach tune. Uski dutu at Lingít chenach. Cha we ye da dune at tsu ada yejigach tune. Ye awe kleshiachana, chakut yaki ko a. Gosri kushta kashgatnigi. Ja, adat yejene, jechane wan kanins. Weshgatnig. Ja, Yachana ko a chakutashkatniki. Gunchish. Great to see everybody. Anybody? Let's see. What did I say? I'm glad that I'm thankful that we have gathered here. Gunchish is a verb. So if you tie it to another verb, there's this. We'll learn a little cheat code tonight on how to tie two verbs together. Okay. And I'll show you like the shortcut way to do that while you figure out all the conjugation stuff. But gunchish hush kanach wutudaati would be I'm thankful we have gathered. So gunchish works as a thank you. You can also say things like gunchish we atcha. Thank you for the food. So you don't need an actual word that's just like for. You say gunchish we atcha. So you're really saying thankful the food. So some of those things, sometimes in Lingít there'll be these little kind of connecting words, and then sometimes there'll be extra ones as opposed to what would be in English. And then sometimes English will have ones that Lingít does not. But if you tie it to another verb, you got to do this little same thing like yak e ichsatini, yak e yichsatini. So to start thinking about how to do something like that, we're gonna start here. So thinking about this chart, the object pronouns and the subject pronouns. There's a lot that we got to sort of figure out. Step one is like just remembering which one does which job. We're talking about you all, so that's got to be ye. We're talking about I'm doing it, that's got to be cha. So like which one goes where. The second part is how do they start interacting with everything else. That's the first part of learning how to put a prefix together. For Lingít verbs, you learn how to assemble that prefix, and then you figure out what the stem is doing. And the stem will be the vowel. Is it going to be short and high, long and high, long and low? And it's predictable, but there's some factors that come in. So thinking of the object pronouns, these affect the verb the least because they sit kind of out in front of the verb. If you have anything like yay or k or ya, that's going to be in front of here. So yay, k, ya, those types of things will be right out in here. Like yechat yati, that one, or tsu ye ikklasatin. Both those verbs have yay, but they're two different yays. Right? So Lingít has a whole bunch of this stuff too. Things that sound the same but are actually different. So we're looking at these object pronouns. Some of them are their own word. And that means there's nothing at the end. Chat is a separate word. You'd say chat, yati, two different words. Ha, yati, two different words. If it has a hyphen, it attaches to the verb itself. Iyati, one word. Yiyati, two words. Awati, one word. Qayati, two words. Quwati, one word. Atyati, two words, and we'll say shkhwadzatin, I see myself, two words. So let me try this. Whoops. So we're going to put some text in here, and big enough to see. Okay. So let's look at why this might be written as two words. So we'll say chat, ha, I, yi. We'll just sort of focus on these four. And actually, let me do it this way. Yeah, we'll just do those. We'll just do these four. So here we might have a verb like, oops, hold on. Okay. So for example, we could have chat. We'll be strong, right? So chat tletsin. And then you could have, so that what would that mean? Chat tletsin.
I'm strong.
I am strong. And what about we are strong? How would I say that?
Litzin.
Ha tletsin. Right? And then this one, ich tletsin. And then ye tletsin. So what we're remembering is which one's attached to the verb. Okay, so we've got that. And then if we said tesh chet ushchin, this would be I am weak. Not like I'm not strong, I am weak. It could mean like anemic or something, or it could, it could mean like very much not strong. The opposite of strong. So then you could say tesh ha wushchin. And you would say tesh yi wushchin. So these ones, you got chet ha yi. But for this one, I would expect tesh yu chin. So this is, oh wait, it should be that. Tesh ich chin. So what happens is the I kind of gobbles up that W. So this is important, right? So, oops, this should be like this. This should be like this. And so another example would be like this. So we change these to yak a. There's not a lot that changes, right? So I could copy and paste the verb, and this one I got to put right there, reattach it, and then there's an opposite one for this, which would be ushke. So we'd say tesh ha ushke, tesh ishke, and tesh yi ushke. So this one's probably a better example, right? So what happens is these ones that are written as disconnected, they don't always affect the verb the same way. There are times that they will. I'll show you some other ways where they're very similar, right? So in this case, I am good, we are good, you are good, y'all are good. I am bad, we are bad, you are bad, y'all are bad. And there's kind of fun stuff in terms of verb conjugation. I'll tell you a little story. So a lot of times we have students who are calling in from a distance, and then sometimes we'll run into each other, and it's kind of fun to be able to have some face-to-face time, especially pre-pandemic. So there was a cultural gathering here, and I saw someone that was in quite a few online classes, and I said, "Yakeyach satini, wasa iyati," and they said, I think they wanted to say tesh chat ushke, but they said tesh ishke. And so I said, cheteke? I said, tesh ishke. And I was like, I said, what did I do? What did I do? Because I wouldn't be shocked. You know, I was like, okay, what did I don't know. Maybe I messed up or and then she started talking, and then I realized that it was just a conjugation mistake, right? So, how are you? You are terrible, right? And so, like, because these are synonymous with evil as well. This is works as evil, bad. It's the opposite of good. Because you could say kleshat uke, klesha uke, klesh ike, klesh yi uke. But we'll take a look at one more example. Uh-huh.
If Chatyake is I am good and Cheshatushkane is I am evil, is there a Lingít concept that would be somewhere in between that would use the same verb?
Well, so yeah, so these ones, both the weak one, strong and weak, and this I might have to make these smaller. Let's see. Okay. I make these a little smaller. So there's a linguist named Seth Cable who did some work on this, and there's a set of them. There's not a whole bunch, but what you see going on here, when you go from yak a to kesh ushke, those are two different verbs. How do we know that it's not the same verb?
Different classifier?
Different classifier. It should not jump to another classifier. So you could say, klesh chat uke. I'm not good. So and so same thing, and you fill it all the way down. Klesh ha uke. Klesh ike. And klesh yi uke. This doesn't mean you're not bad. It means you're not good. You're not good, right? And so, not the best example. Try not to use this particular language too much unless you're teasing. However, who knows, right? There could be someone tried to tell me off on Facebook the other day. So I said, "Kleshade nana'i," which they don't speak Tlingit, so maybe it's not the nicest thing to do. But I was talking about Tlingit concepts. The Sitka newspaper showed a picture of a bear getting shot, and it was getting suffocated by garbage that was around its neck. And I said, there's nothing we respect more than a brown bear. You really shouldn't be putting this picture up for people to see. It's disrespectful. And I had other things to say about them. I was mad at them. And someone said, quit that BS. So then I told them, Kesh ade nana'i, which we translated this last night. So just for fun, just to increase our vocabulary of not nice things to say, which sometimes you need to know.
Renee, are these going to be given to us in a separate list?
Yeah, we could do the list. I did an anti-Valentine's Day cards one time, and you gotta learn how to say some of this stuff. Even though there's a recording, I'll deny it in court. But I didn't teach him that. Like, what's this recording? I was like, I don't know. Okay, but klesh ade these are two separate sentences, I would say. And klesh ade is very short. Anybody know how to translate that?
Is that a directional?
It is, but in this case, it kind of has a special function.
I know the story that says "Tlesh ade yende kwaburiye," and it's I don't want to go down.
Yeah, it's actually, there's no way I can go down.
Yeah, there's no way.
So this could pop up before a verb, and then the verb goes through a pretty substantial change. Then you add yeh on the end, and you get cannot do the verb. So this on its own is, oops, we don't need to go all caps, but it's no way, right? Very short answer, teshate, no way. Again, use it judiciously. If grandma says make some coffee and you say teshate, ooh, it's over for you.
Kadogwash.
And then Nana'i has several different interpretations. If people say that there's no cussing in Lingít, it's not really true. There's a number of things you could say, including this. And has anybody heard this one before? It's used a lot in teasing. I would say, when I asked students to translate this last night, it was a little moment where like, kind of in the moment, and you're like, should I do this? Should I be doing this? And so, but it's a whole language. It's a big whole language. Gotta know how to do this stuff. I would translate this as go die. It can be, it's said a lot teasingly, but this can be really serious. And if you really, you know, want to learn the full way, which I will deny ever showing, you put your thumb in between these two fingers, you spit on it, and then you shake it at someone, and then you say, "Nane." Then you mean it. And you can also add na at the end, if you want to, you know, put a little exclamation on it. So, nana is death, and then e is, it's got it, like, linguistically, it's got some interesting things. Maybe I am kechat ushke. I really stepped into it.
So not is like an exclamation mark if you're like really serious about something.
Na is take it.
Take it.
Yeah. So it's like death, you take it. Nana-i is sort of like, which is interesting because you would expect I nana would be a command form for die. So I think of it as like death for you, and then death for you, take it. So. Let's look at one more thing. Then we'll change the subject. Okay. So this one, anybody know what this verb is? It is dirty. So I wanted to show you folks this one because there are some things, when we look at an object pronoun, we have to ask ourselves another one of these open or close questions. Ends with a consonant, ends with a vowel, ends with a vowel, ends with a vowel. That means the ones that end with a vowel are going to have similar things. And what we're looking at, this is the verb root. When we say root, we means dirty. When we say stem, we say that's a short high verb in the root. Stem is the vowel, root is the meaning. Stem is the vowel, root is the meaning. When you look at that verb root, or stem in this case, could be either, we'll just say root, and you go left, if you got three things that are connected, there's going to be some contraction. But this does not count. Chat wushecheh. This one counts. So what do you think happens? Something's got to go. This is what you get. And then this is where, for our inland learners, where you get the M. The rule for getting an M, you got to have a vowel, then you got to have the W by itself, then you have to have a consonant, and then another vowel. It has to go vowel, W, consonant, vowel. That'll cause it to flip over. So this one has to connect. It will do the same thing. That's got to go. The reason why this U can go, because you could still tell what that thing is. You could tell you could tell what it is. The perfective can change to a W or an M, and we still know what it is. There's nothing that can contract out of this I. There's nothing that can contract out of ha. The I in the classifier signals that it has happened, so that can't leave. And that leaves that Oops, sorry, I'm missing stuff in the chat. Oh, yeah, going back. Sorry, I missed a couple of things. Yeah, words of discouragement. Yay. Yes, we'll do that. There was a poster series, I think in the 90s, that was like countered that. They had those encouraging posters, they had discouraging posters. So
At some point, can we learn like flirting or like Valentine's kind of vocab
yeah, because, well, we'll do that because there's a whole set of Valentine's Day cards, and
on the Google Drive?
I think so.
Okay, I'll have to check it out sometime.
I'll try and remember. Maybe after break we can look at them just because they're fun. And then there's anti-Valentine's Day cards because people go through it. You can't just leave people out just because they got no partner right now. So then, same thing here. So with these ones, you have an inland variation for each of them. But this is the reason why we write them as a separate word, but we have to remember the open ones will impact, they will cause, and same with K and Ye and Ya. If there's nothing between those, or Ade, if there's nothing between those and the verb, it'll start causing this contraction as well. Okay. Well, you've learned some valuable things. Okay, let's do a few of these. And then maybe a story, and then a break. And we'll do a little bit more technical stuff. Although, any questions or anything, things you were thinking about?
I was just curious on Klekushke, on how weather is bad, how that the K ties it in.
Oh, yeah, sure. And I also saw in the chat, wu na. So yeah, nana I na is the noun form of death. Wu na is for someone to die. So here we've got, but with the weather, now there's no pronouns in the weather, right? So what would happen is you'd have this. So that means all this other stuff goes away. So we'll get rid of that. So now you can have kuyake or kuwake. What's happening? So a lot of times we'll write this classifier. So we'll go k and then ya and then k. So a lot of times we're going to write this classifier with the y with the two dots over it. That means in modern day Lingít, when we write it like that and when we pull it apart, that means it's usually a Y sound, but it can be pushed to a W sound real easy. Long time ago, it was its own sound, but I think that sound only exists in Tlein and Cluckwan. It's a bit of a nasal, it's almost like saying a Y through your nose. It almost sounds like an N. So you hear people there say, ging denak, or yak e hat ying ati. You can hear it distinctly, you hear it in Tlein. So for a lot of communities, when there's a sound, just like somebody tell me what this, somebody read that and translate it for me.
Do yadi their child?
Yes. Some real old speakers would say it like this. Do wadi. Right? So we'd see that one. So there was a whole bunch of these ones that are a Y, but they can be pushed into a W very easily. That's what happens here. Oops. Most communities do say kuwake, good weather. For Sitka, they prefer to say kuyake. And there might be other communities that do as well. So you could say keshkuke, and you could say keshkushke. So there you go, weather's not good, the weather's bad. I will say, Tlech and tlech are not used very much anymore. Sometimes with Lingít, you'll get feedback on things, and it's always good to be receptive to feedback, because there's probably all kinds of things too that we just don't quite understand, we being those who are most actively teaching Lingít right now. So if you get corrections on stuff, accept those corrections. But also know sometimes you might receive things where it's just like, people just don't hear it these ways anymore. And these are some of the subtleties do get lost in when a language becomes endangered. Sometimes the subtleties get lost a little bit. Good question.
What's the difference between kuk-e and kushke?
Yeah, so this is, so you got good weather, not good weather, bad weather. So the difference here might be if you're going out on a boat, maybe this is great. Maybe this is a little tough, but still doable. And this is probably like stay home. But kind of depends on context too. Okay, yeah, you, huh? Who wants to read this one?
Na ye shara ach yadi yesu shadnak.
Sheesh. Okay, everybody repeat after me. Na ye shada ach yadi. A Yesush shoutanuk. What do we think this first sentence is saying?
Something about my child.
My child.
Clothing, or is it sha?
Something about the head.
Yes, the head. The head is right here. So na'at is clothing, right? So you say ach na'ati. But the na part is also the upper body. So this is the upper body. So you say upper body, ye shada'uch, which is, well, to put something on over your head. So the na ye shada'uch ach yadi. My child is getting dressed, and specifically pulling a shirt over their head. This is another one of those things where if it's happening right now, it gets a suffix. There's going to be a K sometimes, there'll be an underlined X sometimes, there'll be an X with an apostrophe sometimes. There'll be a T sometimes. They're slightly different, but they usually have to do with something that has to do with a lot of little motions to accomplish what the task is. What about this one?
So, just.
Yeah, cha is just, and it likes to sometimes grab on to other things.
Is Yesu beginning or?
Well, it's like,
Just then.
yeah, so if you say, this one's kind of interesting, and start talking about Yesu, I was in Hawaii, and they're singing songs, and they keep saying Yesu in the song, and I was like, what is going on now? What's still happening? But that was just how they say Jesus. They were singing like hymnal songs, or, you know. So if Yesu, this is how it seems to work to me. If Yesu comes after the verb, it means still happening. I usually translate Yesu as still. So like you'll say, on the world, we're still holding each other's hands. So it has this thing like, it's still going on. So you could say, is your father still eating? Right? What do they say? Ita. Chuke ita. Oh, okay. Anyways. But when you say cha Yesu before the verb, okay? Yesu after the verb is still happening. Cha Yesu, right before the verb, it just now happened. So in this case, Shaudanuk, maybe we'll do a little bit of verb hunting.
Shot is head.
Sha is head. Let me open the verb dictionary. And we're going to go look for nuk, which this is one of the verb roots that has an awful lot of verbs. Let's see.
In Tlein, would this one be Shamdanuk or would it stay Shaudanuk?
Yeah, it'd be shamdanuk. Shamdanuk. Good call. Okay, I'm going to scroll down to the ends. We go neek, neek, newts, nuke. So what we look for, having the sh on there, having a D classifier, and then we have get up or rise. So then we'll go look up rise, just so we can see what kind of, it's always good. I think it's good when you look up a verb in Lingít, look it up in Lingít, then just go see what the sample sentences are. I think it helps to sort of let the verb sit in a little bit. So we'll go to R, scroll down, and then we get to rise. Un gao sa shidanuk. There's that another repetitive form. And they do kind of different things. You just got to keep an eye out for them. Know that those are showing some sort of repetition. The un sa, you could put something right in between it. Un gao sa. On its own, often could mean what time is it? But in this case, un gao sa, at what time? That's what this suffix is doing. Probably next week, we might transition and start looking at some of these directional suffixes. Sa, so at what time? Shidanuk, you regularly, you get up. This is getting up from being asleep. Waking up. Sekanen kukakuch, kejin gauk, shakkodanuk. I'm going boating tomorrow. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock. It's ambitious. So going back to here, my child is getting dressed. They just now woke up. They just now woke up.
How did you know to look up nook as nook? Is that because of how, like what we've been working on with how like endings shorten?
Yeah. Well, the verb root is going to have what we call stem variation. So this could be nook, nuke, or nuke. So no matter what we see it as, we'll look up the long, low version. That's what we do. There are a few of them that always, like the verb ichsechen, that verb sechen is always short and high. It never changes. There are a few of those. Or kudzi, that one doesn't change either. So some of them don't change, but most of them do. So when you see something, so if we see this one, this one's interesting because we're actually going to look up ooh for that one. I think. Okay. Okay. Who wants to read this one? Sheesh. Everybody. Yadachatz achuch.
Yadachas achuch.
Yejinik bagut.
Yejene gopagud.
What do we got here?
Is Huch my husband?
Yes.
Does
My
Chas have something to do with cutting, scraping?
yeah, wow.
Yeah, his face.
Yeah, so he's scraping face. The D classifier quite often means, is associated with anyways, doing something to the self. So if I see that, like washing their own hands, jindauz, yad dechas, shaving their own, scraping their own face. And so we'll just also show how to look this one up. The A verbs are the last vowels, or the A vowels are the last vowels in here. So here's chaz. And here we've got ya. So what's different about the way the Lingít Verb Dictionary writes verbs and how we write them today? So here you see ya, chaz. So when you saw that ya on there, you might think, oh yeah, there's a ya right there. But that's actually the classifier. Nowadays we write them 0, L, S, SH, or D plus 0, D plus S, D plus L, D plus SH. So we'll go look up this one. Oops, we'll go to English, S, go down to shave. And we got here, yak kodachas, I'm going to shave. Yaschawu, oh, yaschawuch, tuk yedachas. Because his face is so hairy, he's always shaving.
The because in that is, where's the because in the sentence? Is
So
it-
there's, yeah, that's a good question. So in this case, you have this verb, zechawu is how we see this. So you can say dad zechawu, a hairy body. In this case, yad zechawu, a hairy face. You can have shad zechawu, but it doesn't really make sense because a lot of heads are hairy anyways. Dad zechawu is the fur around its body too. But this CH, there's two CH suffixes that are different, and they can actually both be put onto a verb. So one of them would be a CH as in they are always hairy. They're hairy all the time. Like nachakuch, I always go boating. Nachakuch, or driving. But there's another CH that goes on, which is what we call an ergative marker. It's a linguistic term. It just marks who does the verb. So in this case, this CH is saying the hairiness of the face is what's causing that to happen. You could also say yaschawu, ach away, tuk yetachas. The tuk in front of it is all the time. That will most often trigger the verb to go into some sort of repetitive mode. In this case, I don't really see it, but. So we also see ya, de, chas.
Yeah.
So we're going to go see if this one is in the verb database as well. So let me pull that up. So we'll go down to the X's. Remember to close these things after I'm done with them. And we have chas. So scrape it, shave the legs, shave the face. So in this case, you get yidechas, yaidechas, command forms. Kesh yidechas chek, don't shave. Yadechas is shaving. Kesh yudechas, yaudechas, yaudechas, kesh yaudechas. And then you can have some repetitive, yadechas shaves regularly. And then you can have Yudachasch shaves every time. So when you put kluk in front of a verb, and this is a long-term thing, you'll learn how to do this. For now, if you put kluk in front of a verb for like all the time, always doing this, always doing that, use either one of these with the ch or one of these underneath. So repetitive imperfective or this perfective habitual. Doesn't matter what they're called, really. It matters what they do. And I know we talked about learning how to tie two verbs together. To tie them together really quickly. Like you could say, what you're going to do is the first one's going to be the verb in whatever form. Yak-e, gunach-chish, achtu yak-e. Then the second verb is you're going to go look up the negative perfective. It's just kind of a weird thing that happens. Then you're going to put a relational suffix on it that's going to function just like the one we finished learning about. Hiti, Gucci, all those different things, right? So here's, for example, I could copy this, and I could change it too. I'll change it. So going back to here, like whatever I wanted verb 1 to be, so I could say, gunach-chish. And I would say, hot iyagut. So this is a verb that says, you came here, hot iyagut. And if I go look up that verb, I'm going to go look for that verb on here. I'm going to go up to gut. I'm going to go down to this one. And we've got iyagut. Okay? There's some other stuff in front of me. I don't want to worry about it right now. This is the perfective. You change ut to hot, right? You could also say neich iyagut. You came inside. If I want to tie those things together, I'm going to look for the negative perfective. So yigut. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to go back to here. And I'm going to say gunach-chish, hot, yigu, di. That I should be the opposite of the tone before it. Putting that suffix on there will change that T to a D, just like those other rules we learned the other day. Another one, yak-e. Ilchsetin, I see you, or I saw you. So same thing, we'll go find this verb. The trick is they're not all, it doesn't list them all in terms of I did it, you did it, they did it. Not all of them have that. This one should though. So I'm going to go down to teen. I'm going to go look for to behold, to see something. It's right here. And I see chwasetin. I put the I in front of it. That I caused this letter A to be contracted. And so this form, chwasetin, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to say yak-e. And I've got chwasetin, so I've got to add I in front of it, which is going to knock this thing out. And then I have to put the suffix on the end. It's a little bit advanced, but you can just sort of mess around with it. And so I have a friend, and we like to tease each other a lot. So then we would, I was first trying this, right? So I could say, Here's another example, maybe in Tlein. So I said, what are those two things? What's this first one? Oh, sorry. It should be this one. Sorry.
I'm happy inside.
I'm happy. And ichin unique. Your hand hurts. Not a nice thing to say. But just sometimes this is how my brain works. Because when I first learned about this sort of structure, I said, well, would it work like this? And then, so this is what I would predict for that. I'm happy your hand hurts. And so I wouldn't really say this, but I was just trying to test it out. I was like, so is that how it worked? And we were all sort of theorizing when we were sort of figuring these pieces out, and some folks were teaching it to us. And the person who was teaching it to us, they said, I think so. And so an elder, what? And we tease each other, right? It's just teasing, but don't get yourself in trouble. So I said the elder's name, and they said, Dasa. I said, Achtuusiku ichiniku. And she goes, Ja. I was like, oh, it works, okay. I was like, but I don't really feel that way. And then we also, well, let's do. I'll do a little bit of just, it's a chunking exercise. This will be the last one. What is that one? How would you translate that one?
I'm not happy to see you. No.
Mm-hmm. I am unhappy to see. I feel terrible seeing you. Again, don't say this to people, but one part of using a language is teasing people. So a friend and I, we just had this thing where we'd try and think of really silly things. This is how we used to say hi to each other. But I don't recommend it. I'm just showing you a grammar structure. That's how I disguise these things. Questions? It's a lot of stuff. I know it's a lot of stuff.
I don't really understand how unique turns into unigu. Like the I understand the gu part, but the ya to u.
Yeah, and this is something. So we go to Neek and we see, and so like this Yannick, so this one particularly, like you could put any sort of body part in front of that. And then that's how you got like a sore hand, a sore elbow, a sore knee, ki Yannick, dich Yannick. But then if you go to, oh, it should be this one actually. It should be that one. So when we grab that negative perfective, that's the one we should be using and then altering and by adding the suffix to it. So it should be this one. It's just kind of a weird, it doesn't like, and I think it does have some of these things where some of the things seem a little clear. Like, okay, it's this and here's the rules and you do this thing. Some of them aren't. It's just like, here's how you do this type of thing. And there's not a real clear this plus this equals that. It's just sort of like, here's the trick. But this is how you tie two things together very quickly. And you don't need any for or because, right? Thankful or thank you. You came here. I'm thankful you came here. Good, I see you. It's good to see you. I'm happy your hand hurts. I'm happy that your hand hurts. So in English, you kind of add a that or to or because or something like that. But in the Lingít to do it this way, and there's other ways to do this type of thing. But just in terms of like, they felt bad, this thing happened. You could do stuff like that now. Du tu wu, kesh du tu wu uke. Something, you know, ya atunei, the way it happened. Right? But it's probably, this is probably goes under, there's several things that I think go under this category of, it doesn't make sense, but I just have to internalize this process. But then there are other things that are a little bit more step by step by step. We
So
kind of, oh, go ahead.
So the general pattern is like non-conjugated verb connected to a negative perfective conjugated verb with the relational base or relational suffix.
Relational suffix, yep.
Okay.
And it's called a subordinative clause.
So again, that's a non-conjugated verb connected to a.
Yeah, it's usually, it's this right now because this thing happened. That's kind of the general logic behind this pattern. So like ganchish, I'm thankful, yake, it's good, achtuwu siku, I'm happy, kashachtuwu ushke, I feel bad. And then you've got, these are all perfectives. You arrived, I saw you. In this case, it would probably be, well, it's a state verb, you know, yanik, and then I see you. Yeah. So, but that's why you say, yake hati adi, yake hat tini. So you should be able to like construct a whole bunch of those things, which is really helpful. Like this is a really big step to take to be able to sort of tie two things together immediately, right? Okay. Okay. Let's keep on the verb train for a second. And then we might do something a little different. We'll see how we feel. And we'll take a break in a few minutes. So think about how these verbs work, right? You got an object, you got a subject. We're going to focus on two things right now. What does it look like when you change a subject? And what does it look like when you change between these three basic kind of verb modes? In this case, the command form, do it. Happening right now, doing it. Happened, did it. Going to, will happen. So basic, these are, we call these imperative or command, imperfective, perfective, future. So our verb in this case is cha, object, subject, zero group classifier, cha, for someone to eat. This is a zero act verb. This thing in parentheses is pretty important. This tells you the conjugation type. Sometimes we call them the conjugation class. So every Lingít verb has a set of qualities that you just have to remember. Is there an object? It's shown right here in the theme. Can't remove it. Is there a subject? It's shown right here. Don't forget that it's there. It's a zero group classifier. So in this case, we should expect it to either be zero or ya. And it'll be ya if it has happened. Cha, the number one, says there's another cha, which is paddling. Then we get to here. There are 4 conjugation classes. Every verb will just belong to one of those classes. They kind of have meaning associated with them. A zero is goal-oriented. That means there's a point where it kind of reaches its completion. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to get there. I arrive there. Those types of things. A na verb kind of has more to do with just being an ongoing thing. Not that it never ends, but that it's not specifying an end. It's more like, get this thing started. Ga is an upward verb. Qa is a downward verb. The way these things affect the verb is in the command form. So it'll be there. So if the verb is 0, like this one, to command someone to eat it, you'd say cha. A na verb, to command someone to go to sleep, nata. So you hear that na pop up there. To command someone to stand up, you'd say giddahan. So the ga is in there. It runs into the I part. Or I could say be good. Igak a. The ga is in there. And if I said sit down, qannu. It also, this plus some things that are shown about, but well, this plus the verb mode will tell you what the vowel is going to do. A 0 open perfective verb will always be long and high. The others will be long and low. But that's stuff you're going to learn in the future. For now, just know that every verb belongs to one of these 4. There are also types of verbs. There's an act verb. Usually someone does something to someone. An event verb, something happens. The difference between that is the event verb does not have an imperfective. There's a state verb for something to be a certain way. It's good, it's strong, it's stinky. There's a motion verb for something to move, and a position verb for something to be located somewhere. There's not very many position verbs, but the position verbs can only be in the imperfective, positive or negative. It is there or it isn't there. The motion verbs are the most complicated verbs, if you ask me. The reason is it can actually be any of these 4. It can switch. So you could say, that's why sometimes you'll hear people say, hot, iya gut. That's a 0 verb. Ade ye good. That's a na verb. And then you can also have ga or ka. That's a lot. I know that's a lot. The goal here is to pull the curtain back, then to close the curtain and say, let's look at this thing, and let's just look at these things when we start to change them. Any questions?
So when you were talking about the hot, because it has the T suffix that's arrived at, that's why it would be the 0 goal.
Yes. So
The
there's
odd day is like going to somewhere. So adach coming from, would that also be a na?
yeah. So day, dach, and nach are all na. T, and then there's a few other neish. Those are, and that's why you say neish go. But you say we day na go. Okay.
Just trying to understand so these 4 types of verbs on the right here, how does that relate to like motion verbs, position verbs? So like, are these 4 here kind of the larger categories and some of those are scattered throughout, or are they all just kind of?
So for most state verbs are ga. There's a few of them that are other things. Act verbs and event verbs could be any one of these 4. And they're gonna affect the way you conjugate the verb. Like sometimes this will prescribe if there's gonna be ye or k in front of it. When you say tsu ye ikhosatin, the ye pops up because it's ka conjugation, and ye is downward. If you were to say, anybody ever hear anyone say, it will be good? Has anybody ever heard that? It will be good. So yuk a is good. Uk a, it was good.
Okay.
What's that?
Okay.
K kwuk a. K. So that K must be there because of this ga. So an act verb or an event verb or a state verb could be any one of these 4, but it's associated with the verb and it doesn't change. Like when you get the one for like sunshine, audagon, That's a q conjugation. And you just have to, it's something, as you learn, it's like you got to kind of stack up your information, right? Like, I just got to focus on these pronouns. I'll learn the other stuff later. I got to get the ch and the tu and the I and the y. But then once you start to get those down, then we start looking at some other things. And those things are, if you want to conjugate a verb in Lingít, you kind of got to know all these things and you got to know how they interact. But we do, as far as like how we're teaching Lingít now, it's a bit of a staggered approach. Although sometimes we'll look at a thing like this and say, here's all the things, just so you know. You don't need this to speak Lingít right now, because you can go look those verbs up. For now, just look them up. And stick with the verbs that are documented, so you can just sort of say, I know how to say these things. Then you start learning how to tie them together, right? I'm upset that you're dirty. You could do those types of things. Okay. Other questions? Okay, let's take a little brain break. Then we'll come back and we'll just start looking at these. We'll just start shifting them and we'll just notice how they're changing. I'm not going to ask you to predict too many things right now. We're just going to take a look at them. Say them, note a couple things, mostly what's going on with the classifier, how that's affecting the prefix, and then what the stem looks like. So let's come back at 10 till, and then we'll pick it up here. Sheesh. Okay. Question?
Yeah, so just in regards to, I've been listening to stories and video recordings on YouTube, and I found some are so fast, I even have troubles repeating them. And I'm wondering if there's a way to like extract them off there to be able to like slow them down somehow. Like, would that be through Elan, or like how would you go about something like that? Because I'm really good with spatial repetition, so where I could say something like over and over again.
Yeah, I would probably use Audacity, which is free, I think. Or if you have the Adobe software, I would use Audition.
Okay.
Then you can insert silence, is really what you'd end up doing.
Yeah. Like with YouTube videos, because once it's on YouTube, it's kind of hard to get off of there, right?
Yeah, there is. Let me show you folks. Oops. So a while back, I found some software. Let me open it first. So it's probably asking me to buy a different version. So this software is extremely annoying in the fact that it will always be trying to sell you a million other things. So I will say that. It used to be called something else, but now it's called Wondershare Converter. There's probably other things that do the same job. But I'll tell you why I like this one. You can convert video. So if you need to downsize some of your video, because you're going to move something into this program, Elan, which we use to transcribe and translate languages, it works better if you can downsize that video. So you don't really, if you got some kind of 4K or 1080 video, like that's a lot. And you don't need that high of a resolution because it ends up being a pretty small little window on your computer. You can also, if you go to the download section, you can download straight from YouTube, which is kind of nice. And you could pick which resolution version you're going for. So sometimes if I'm going to set up stuff in Elan, I'll record an elder, render that video, upload it to YouTube, and then I'll just download it here and download a smaller version to my Elan. And then you could, if you had video editing software, there's lots out there. Some of it's free, some of it costs money. But you could take that stuff and start to break it up that way too. And I don't mind. Like if there's stuff that I've made or there's classes, you guys could do whatever you want with those. Outside, I guess if you're selling them, that might be kind of weird, but that's a good question. Any other questions before we go on? We'll do this for a bit. Oh, whoops. We'll do this for a bit more, and then we'll do a story, because I know this stuff gets exhausting. And I will think over the weekend about some activities that we can do to help use this stuff. But before I forget, I think what I want to do for the next several weeks is a series, as far as like sentences. So usually over the weekend, y'all kind of make sentences. And what we're going to do, let me pull something up real quick. What I'd like us to try is to have a series. I'll put this picture up, and we're going to have a series of sort of ecosystem-based discussions. So the only theme I'm going to give you is mountaintop. Come up with some sentences. That's all, as long as it's related to a mountaintop. I'll give you a little background on why I think of these things. I was in a first grade class that's in a Hawaiian medium school called Navihi. And I was watching how they teach, and they made a poster of these things. And they said, Shashaki is the mountaintop, Shaya is the steep part around the mountain, Shada is around the base of the mountain, Katk is the soil or the earth, Askatu is the forest. I could probably put Shachk on here as well, which is the marsh. Nietzsche is the beach, Katz is the sky, Kis Shuyi is below the tide line, Each is a large boulder or reef that's in the tide line, Kintok is down in the deep water, Eat is down in the way deep water, they call it the halibut hole, Kat is an island. So what I saw them do in Hawaii was they started with plants that are up there, animals that are up there, what the animals eat, which plants we could use. And it was just really a very holistic way, I think, of using the language to talk about ecosystems. So I want us to try it. And I want us to think about things you see, things you do, things you eat, things you need to know. I'm really interested in this kind of stuff, like, because this is what we do in our language nest as we start working kids through here. What kind of animals are there? What kind of things do they eat? What do we go after? What do we use them for? There's so many things that could lead to other things. Mountaintop, snow, mountain goats. Oh, mountain goat wool, cedar bark, chocat blankets. Like you could just, however you want to think about it, just come up with 5 to 10 sentences that you could share with us. It doesn't have to be a narrative, but it could be. Whatever works for you. Then we'll go down the mountain, then we'll go down the woods, then we'll go down the beach, then we'll go out in the water. Just kind of giving us another sort of approach, as kind of a thematic approach to what we're going to be talking about.
Is thematic like nomadic? Or thematic? What does thematic mean?
That just means like it's a topic.
Oh, okay.
It's like things on the mountaintop. Yeah, theme, yeah. Okay. So for this verb having to do with eating it, and there's an it there, your classifiers are going to be either 0 or ya. When we look at this, this chart shows us, and I can give you folks some blank ones of these. We could do that too, so that we can go over them and we'll see how you can do filling in the blanks as far as predicting what it's going to be. So we're going to do a command. You can only command the second person. We're not going to do plurals here. First person me, second person you, third person them. Only doing singles right now. The command form is going to be a zero classifier. The doing it right now is zero classifier. The perfective is going to be a plus I, ya classifier, and then a zero classifier. Okay. So to command someone to eat it, you say cha, 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 cha. I am eating it. Ah,
So the command form doesn't have a pronoun in it? It doesn't have a subject pronoun in it. Is that because it can only be the second person singular?
you can command a second person singular or a second person plural. The second person plural will always have y in there. The second person singular will not have a pronoun unless there's a D component in the classifier. So that's why you say gaidana, because that is in there. Or no, you'd say gidahan, sorry, gidahan. But yeah, a second person singular usually does not have any pronoun, which is weird. It just sort of disappears. I am eating it. Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha. So this is 0 ha 0 ha. That's actually what's going on. There's invisibles in there, which is it and the zero classifier. You are eating it. Icha. 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 0 0 cha. They are eating it. Acha. 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 So here you would have 0 0 0, but the second 0, which is the subject, pushes that first one to switch to a, or else you wouldn't know that there was an object there. So that's why this one, what you're seeing with this is the third person object, which gets triggered by the third person subject. It's important to remember. I ate it. Hua ha. Hua ha. Hua ha. So this underline X, W, A, this is going to be a first person perfective for the zero type, for the zero classifier. Hua gut, hua ha, hua ka. So those would all be hua, right? Those would be the same. Also note that the stem went long. Short, high, short, high, short, high, short, high. And so once we get it in this first one, it's going to be the same. So you're going to have ha over on these two as well. You ate it. Iyacha. 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 So going back, we had 0, na, ga, and qa. The 0 verbs that are second person will usually be iya. The other ones, na, ga, and qa, will be ye. They ate it. Awacha. 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 So here you have 0, y, cha, ya, cha. 5 things in there. It all smushed together. Here, 0, y, I, ya, cha. Here, y, 0, ya, cha. Now to the future. I'm going to change this one. Kukacha, kukacha, kukacha. Okay. You will eat it. Kakicha, kakicha, kakicha. They will eat it. Akquacha, akquacha, akquacha. Okay. Any questions about those? Now let's drink it. So itna, that's going to be our command form. So when we look up this verb, we see object, subject, D plus 0 classified. So it's a 0 group, but it has that D component there. Na, the number 1. So there's a na, which is to drink or to lubricate or to kind of be damp, I guess. There's another na, which is to die or inherit. So our classifier options here are da or di. And if we look at what we should expect, the command form will be da, doing it right now, da, perfective, di, future, da. So basically the perfective is usually going to be the one where that we put the I component into the classifier. The other ones will all be 0, da, sa, sha, sha, sh. The perfectives will have ya, then all the rest will have that letter I in there. So to command someone to drink it, you would say itna, 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 itna. I am drinking it. Khadana, 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 itna, 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 itna. There will be times when there's technically no way to tell whether this is you are drinking it or drink it. You would get it from context, right? They are drinking it. Adana, 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 adana. Short high, short high, short high, short high. Same thing's going to happen here. It's going to go long and high. Khwadana, 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 idana, 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 audana, audana, amdana, amdana, khwadana, khwadana, kakidana, kakidana. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoops. Where'd I go? Aguchtana, aguchtana, aguchtana. So we're starting to see how the verb changes, right? with these kind of 10 different things. Command, doing it right now, did it, will do it, first person, second person, third person.
Groene.
Oh,
In regards to the even that and then having no differences, I did hear some like hey she when she does like commands to soften it sometimes to tell the difference. Maybe you could add a gushy on. Does elders around here say gushy as well, or is that just
it's mostly an inland thing.
yeah. It's like to soften a command if you're more asking.
Yeah, or you could say kshe. It might be kshe here.
Akshay?
Or you could say juan.
On?
Yeah. But a lot of times, if you're telling someone to drink something, it's usually a kid. And then,
Or clout day.
yeah. And even saying you're drinking it is kind of it's not used that much, right? Like, if it was day-to-day conversation, I couldn't think of why. I guess you could, someone's be like, where's my water? Well, you're drinking it. Like, I don't know. But these are mostly just to sort of see the grammar, right? And then when we get into like whole language, we'll see how this stuff does work. Yeah. Sheesh. Okay. Shift gears. So the next one we'll do is cooking, but we'll do that next week. I think. Unless you guys want to do cooking? We went through this story a couple weeks ago. We went through it pretty fast. So I thought we could each take turns reading a sentence, making sure we understand the things that are going on in that sentence to see some whole language, and then talking about anything that we want to know about in these particular sentences. There's also some structure as far as Lingít literature in here that we could talk about as well. Again, this is Kakwan Ish, George Davis, Shakshani, Marge Dudson. Those are two of my teachers. We used to do a lot of work together translating stuff. We had a whole set of stories that we translated, I think 4.5 of them or 5.5 of them. And then they unfortunately passed away. So then I took those stories and did some work with elders in Sitka, and then we took it to Tlein and finished it there. So this story, well, let's just go through it. Who would like to read the first line? Oh.
Ja shakle babies shak waitlinget anich ye yeti.
Sheesh. Anything that you want to know about? Do you understand how all these parts basically work in this sentence?
I understand every part except for the ya. Is the ya the position?
It's this.
This. Oh.
So Lingít does not have articles like the or a or n or the. So you'll say ya or we. Sometimes you'll hear you. You yate that raven. Ya yate this raven.
Is there a reason why it's yayati instead of yewuti?
That's a really good question. Richard Dowenhauer has a theory that in Lingít you tell stories with perfective verbs, but when you shift a scene or open a scene, it uses an imperfective form. So technically, even though we have how this translated, this would be this beautiful young girl, that people, town, she exists. So I would translate this as a beautiful young woman lives in the village.
And that's an imperfective, you said?
Yes, it's right now. That's a good point.
And throughout the stories, when they're like yeyawaka and somebody's saying it, that's also imperfective as well, right? Because they're saying,
Yawaka has that W though, so it's perfective.
oh,
That's how you learn how to spot that W and say, okay, that's perfective.
okay.
One other thing, shakshake is a verb for someone to be beautiful. This yi is a different but very similar suffix. We call it the attributive suffix. It always stays low, but otherwise follows all those same rules for the relational suffix. This turns a verb into an adjective. Yak'e, yak'e cake is a good dog. Kesh ushke, that one changes a little bit. Chitzin, chitzini shawat, a strong woman. Anything else about this one? Who wants to read this one? Come on.
Shire Haney Koch away Hastu Tuasigu Dushayi Kuwa Dutu Yeti Hastu Kayanach Yake.
Sheesh. Anything we want to know about this one? So Shia Dehain is many. Shia Dehaini is doing that same thing. So there are many of these things. Shia Dehaini Kang. It's a plural form of a man. So ka, hasti tuasa gudushayi. So even though we went through that thing, say the starting point is look up the negative perfective. Like it can actually, it doesn't have to be a negative perfective, but it does have to be minus I. So you get dushayi. They want to marry her. Dutuyeti, she feels. Hastu kayanach yake. So this thing is saying more than that one, right? So you could say, ach kayanach itchitzin, you're stronger than I am. Ikayanach yake, I'm better than you are. Don't say that. But just to show you how the thing works.
More than like other person.
Yeah, so yanach is more than. Kayanach is comparing more than, right? Really making a direct comparison.
Just quickly, the ku'ah could be used as a but, right? In a story, or like, is it just specifically like although?
It is used when you're kind of shifting the subject a little bit, but try not to be in the habit of using it like a conjunction, like in English. It's this, but this other thing.
Or just when you want to shift the scene. Kind of.
Yeah, because you're saying this thing, but this other thing.
Okay.
There's another one. So you've got ku'ah, and there's a similar one, which is cha'an. And cha'an is more of a hard turn. Like, it's saying it's this way, although there's this other thing, right? Or still this other thing. Okay, okay. Who wants to read this one?
Astu ane gage ke we are Tlein kotuti.
Sheesh. Anything we want to know about that one? The gige is in the middle. It's like a hair. I think of On as a village, first of all. I don't think of it as land. I think of kat as land. If you said on, I usually would think of village. Okay, okay. Quantity is to exist, so that's how you do that. Who wants to read this one?
Dahin aya dukitin ya khaya ade has uat.
Sheesh. Anything we want to know about this one? Tlein is one time. And so you could be saying like they came here only once or they knocked one time. Tlein nawe. Akawagwat knocked on it once. But it also works in storytelling to be like one time. Right? So it's a nice, as we look at these stories too, we just focus on these transition pieces. How do you move along through a narrative so that we can use that to tell our own stories? So tleidehin ayah, you could also say tleich yati aowe. There was one of them. Dukiktin with her younger sibling. Ayach. A lake does not have a niche. A lake does not have ik. A lake has ayach. Same with the river. That's the yach part is along the edge of something. So a helpful thing for here is if you have, like when we had kids in the nest and we want to tell them to sit at the table, nadak yach qayqih, sit around the edge of the table. So sometimes the one you're going to use, it just switches a little bit in Lingít. Yach is also the edge of the water. Ayach is sort of like right, it's the mouth of the edge. So things have a mouth, including water. In the Lingít way of thinking, Yach for me would be near the lake. If there's a beach, that would be Yach. Ayach would be right down there by the, might be getting your toes wet. Day is towards, hasfuat, they went, and the day makes this na conjugation. Because if you say they went right up to it, ayacht, hasuat. But they just went towards it. So I want to read this.
Shayedheni hit ak ayachas yawake.
Sheesh. Anything we want to know about that one?
Is plural, the noun for plural sitting?
Yes. So there are, what's that?
Like game key. Like,
Yes. So with motion verbs especially, what makes motion verbs complicated, one is they can have any of those four conjugation types, zero, na, ga, ha. The other thing, they most often change when you go from singular to plural. And they do so in some sometimes hard to predict ways. You got to just sort of remember there's a set of patterns. Either the verb root changes or the whole verb structure kind of changes a little bit. For example, you would say wugut for one person, haswuat for multiple people. You'd say wushich for one person to run, they ran, hasluwaguk, they ran. That one changes pretty dramatically. So you go to sluwaguk. You would say at wujakain, one person jumped around. At haskauduwakain. So it changes quite a bit.
Are they considered the same verb still, or is it a different verb?
It's a different verb. So for a lot of motion verbs, like not for all of them, some of them you can pluralize. And then some of them, it gets you get into these logical things. Like you can say haswushi, but that means they went different ways. If they went together, you'd say hasluwagu. And in this case, sitting and standing, those are other ones that change. So you'd say wunuk would be one person. Yawaqi. We usually say wuqin, but yawaqi is like they're sitting upwards because they're frogs. Who wants to sing? I mean, you can sing if you want to. Who wants to read this one?
Kwa ye oe has at shi.
Goodness, sheesh. Anything we want to know about this one? It's another one that comes out in the imperfective. So what's in Lingít doesn't always match what's in English. If I were to sort of more accurately translate this one according to what's in the Lingít, I would say kwa, 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 kwa. They are singing. But that is how they are singing. So in this case, this ye away verb, that's how the verb is happening, right? To sing, that's how it's verbing. Has at shi, they are singing. But if you said, if I were to change this, what do you think happens? So has at shi, has a shi.
And they're saying something.
They're singing it, right? So there are some verbs that have one with an object and one with at. Say they are singing it, they were singing. They were eating it, they were eating. Same thing. You say acha, they are eating it. Say atcha, they're eating.
So if we were to say I am singing, would it still be chashi?
Atchashi, I am singing. At ishi, you are singing. At tushi, we are singing. But if you change that at to a regular object pronoun, chashi, I'm singing it. Or chashi. Who wants to read this one?
Shaklakaye has akawashuk e kudakhi yakleji.
Sheesh. Anything we want to know about this one? Laughing, at shuk would be laughing. Ashuk, laughing at them. Khatshuk, laughing at me. Ichashuk, I'm laughing at you. So some of the verbs, the object, just the object changes, sometimes does like this for thing or at thing, right? In this case, when you put the ka on there, it's really kind of aggressively laughing at something. Usually when people are a kawashuk in a story, they're being kind of mean, right? This is like someone falls down and you laugh at them, that kind of thing, which does happen, right? Has a kawashuk, she laughed at them. That's how you say yuck. Kudach yi yaukhliji. Not a nice thing to say. So kudach is too much. There's yi, that second person plural object. Yaukhliji is for someone to have a hideous face. So she said to them, that's why the bad things happen. Don't say this kind of stuff to animals. Although this is a class, I guess, where you really learn how to insult people. I guess we better do the flirting class after this. Not all just being mean. People are going to watch this class like, man, you guys are mean. The elders, when they did this one, they laughed because they thought there was, because, there were some things like, wow, I haven't thought about saying that in a long time. And This might be the last one we get. We'll see if we get to the real funny one.
Is there a relationship between shakligay and yukligi?
Uh,
The shakli and yak, because the sha is head and the ya is vertical surface or face.
Good question. Like, so to start sort of analyzing this stuff, I usually go to the verb dictionary and I look at because the root contains the meaning. So if we go look up qay, let's see, go down. So we get qay, and shaqay without the sha is bright or shining brightly. We put ka on front of it, fancy, attracting attention, yashaqay, a pretty face, shaqshaqay, a bright, shiny head. It's kind of how it works. But sometimes when we look at how the logic's working in the language, we just got to remember it translates a little differently. Because if you start walking around saying, hey, they got a bright, shiny head, like people will be like, what are you talking about? It does translate to beautiful, but as far as how the chunks of the language work, you've got sha, ka, she, ke. It's more like maybe a fancy head. So then we'll go to G and see what we find there. So we've got this one. It's the second one. And we've got kashaji, awful or terrible. Yawaji, to punish or chastise. Yaushaji, to be distasteful. Yakashaji, to be ugly. And kashaji, to really be making awful sounds. And that's what the cha usually refers it back to either tasting or talking. And the ya usually refers it back to a face. So in this case, it's an awful face. Which, I guess we'll just stop there. Now we got awful face.
I put some interesting notes today.
We're getting ready for the anti-Valentines.
Yeah, we're just really leading. I guess we got to do like some kind of really, maybe we just got to write some kind of love story now. Just to sort of, we got to balance the energies of these things.
It's good Halloween content.
Right? And some of these stories, though, what they do show is they show someone doing something you're really not ever supposed to do. This pushes the world out of balance, and then the animal world comes and corrects the behavior, usually by kidnapping somebody. That's like a really major theme in a lot of Lingít stories. Somebody does something, they violate that world. And in the world sometimes, like as far as like some of the things you commonly see, if a female does it, they come and kidnap her and then comes back. But then there's Auktatsin, so maybe it has to do with a young person. But there are other versions where kids go and they laugh at things, and then those things come and poke everybody's eyes out, or, you know, it could get really bad sometimes. I guess we're gonna have to write some feel-good fuzzy stories. So,
If there are stories in which someone is kidnapped, do they come back so that they can tell the story?
they always, in these ones, they do come back.
Moldy.
So there's the bear. She comes back. Although the bear story, I think we have it in the kids. Yeah, we do have it in this kids version. So the brother goes, and it's really interesting when you look at the full version of this story. So she says something really bad about bears. She calls them basket butt, and that's what gets it. Or tukdadakak, if you want to know how to say it. I guess the theme of the class is things you're not supposed to do. And so the bear comes and appears as a person and takes her, and they end up having babies and stuff. And then she realizes it's a bear, and then her brothers go looking for her, and the dog of the brother is very intelligent and knows how to find a bear. But when they look at a bear's den, their eyes shine in like sunbeams, and the bear jumps up to break them. But that bear husband knew the brother was coming. He could hear the dog barking. So he said, I'm going to go and let him kill me. And it's a pretty tragic moment in the story when you get to the bigger kind of adult versions. And then she's sad. And then he says, make sure that you guys take good care of my hide. And so he goes out and he gets shot in the heart. He lets himself, because he could have just gone out and killed that boy. But he just went out and got killed. So she goes back, and then she has these kids, and they turn into humans when they're around the humans. And her brother at one point says, can I go pretend to hunt your kids? And she says, I don't want you to. He says, it'll just be for fun. Just be for fun. And so he says, just a game. So he does, but then when she looks later, he's using real arrows for some reason. So she turns herself back into a bear, and she kills her brother, and she takes her kids, and she leaves. That's how the story ends. So it's like that one you get more disruption at the end. So the other thing with a lot of Lingít stories too, like sometimes you don't get that nice, tidy ending. You know, same with Haida stories too. There's one Haida story, it's like this guy rescues his wife from the killer whales, then he brings her back, and like that's where you would be like, cut, roll credits. But in the Haida version, so then he brought his wife back and he put her in a box. Then he put that box in another box, and that box in another box, and he forgot about her. And when we went back sometime later, she had chewed a hole in it and left. And I was like, that's the story. So it gives you a lot to think about. But over the weekend, maybe write your own fuzzy happy stories. Mountaintops, we'll start with sentences. Link them together, just have random sentences, whatever you want to do.
Is this on top of our midterm?
Yeah, your midterm's not due for 2 weeks, right?
Okay.
Is it too much? Let me know if it's too much. And I can help with the tie them together. I don't know. But you have when were we going to share our sentences? Did we say that already?
26.
Yeah, 26th and the 28th. And we'll just see how it goes. If you need to kick it over to the 2nd or the 4th, that's not a big problem. There's,
Wait, what sentences are we sharing on the 26th again?
yeah, we'll share on the 26th and the 28th. And if some folks aren't ready,
Or midterm on that.
we'll just sort of bump them back a little bit. Don't stress.
Mountaintops next week.
Yeah, and just like 5 to 10, and they could be very simple, or they could be, you could try to tie a few things together. Just like to give you folks something to work on over the weekend.
Can we use like things that we can find as well to help?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because if you're ever feeling stumped on stuff, you'd be like, you can go find a sentence from the verb dictionary or something and then say, I thought this was a neat sentence. And so, yeah, it's just a chance for us to engage and to share the language that we're working on our own. Okay, any other questions? Everybody okay? Okay. Oh,
Itte Dogden. Sorry, I thought you were saying bye. Didn't mean to interrupt.
it's okay. Sheesh.